Hey guys, Pierre here from Into Fly Fishing, and today I'm going to show you how to tie one of my favorite soft hackle variants. For the materials that you'll need: the hook, I'm using a Mouche 8422 in a size 12. The hook can be any standard length shank with a wide gape. I also prefer using barbless hooks, so they're much more gentle on the fish and they prevent headaches when you're on the stream or next to the lake when the hook gets stuck into some of your gear or into your net or whatever. So that's the hook. For the thread, I'm using Semperfly Nano Silk 50 Denier. That's in white, so I'll just color it at the end of the fly with a permanent marker. For the body, there's a combination of two materials. The first one is gold tinsel. That's the base, the underbody. And for the overbody or the ribbing, I'll be using a stripped peacock wool. This is an olive. For the thorax, you'll see that I created a little thorax behind the hackle. I just used a couple of wraps of peacock herl. And for the hackle itself, I'm using Partridge. Just use one of the feathers here from the back of the Partridge, which I'll prepare during the tying process. To seal the abdomen, I'll use Solarez UV Resin in thin and Hansen's hard as nails. I'll also use this to finish the fly off as a head cement. For the tools, a vise, a bobbin holder, a pair of scissors, hackle pliers for the hackle, a bodkin to spread out the UV resin. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to use a permanent marker to color the thread, a UV torch for the UV resin, and a whip finishing tool. So that's all the materials and the tools you'll need. So let's start tying a fly. I'm going to remove this one from the vise and take a hook from the packet. I'm going to place the hook between the jaws of the vise, like so. So things to look out for when you place the hook, you secure the hook in the vise, is that the hook point and barb is exposed. This is always the case for a standard shaped hook. Also that the hook shank is level and that the hook is secured properly. That will prevent it from moving around when you're tying the fly. So now we start laying a thread foundation, or lock the thread in first. Like so. Cut off the excess and lay a thread foundation forward just behind the eye, and then I'm going to come back and lay a thread foundation back, but I'm just going to open the thread a little bit by twisting the bobbin in the opposite direction, or anti-clockwise direction. You'll see that it lays nice and flat now. I'm going to open it again and just wrap my thread forward to right about there. Move it 2/3 up the hook shank. This is where we will tie in the gold tinsel. So I'm just going to cut a section off from my holder and tie it in right here on the side of the shank, on top of the shank, like so. And then I'm going to run my thread back to secure it in place while pulling slightly on it to keep tension on the golden tinsel. Right there. So the thread base and the abdomen starts where the thread will intersect the bob. That's the reason why one of the reasons why we let the bob and the hook point protrude from the vise, is just to give us that reference. Right, so now we are preparing a peacock stripped quill. So you'll see that it tapers down to a very fine point right here where the peacock quill fibers start, and at the base it's much thicker. So because we're using this as a ribbing, I want to taper the ribbing from thin to thick as we go forward. So I'm going to tie it in right here at the base where the thread is now. So I'm just going to cut off that little section. I'm going to transfer that to fly and tie it in. Open the thread and move the thread forward to about there, 2/3 to 3/4 up the hook shank. Now I'm going to wrap the peacock, the golden tinsel, the underbody with touching wraps. It's fine if you leave a gap here and there, that's 100%. Try and cover as much of the thread as possible. Right there. Secure it with your thread and cut off the excess. Right, so now for the ribbing, I want the ribbing to be wound in the same direction as the thread. This will prevent inducing slack in it as we secure it. So the thread we wind in that direction, so we're going to do the same with the ribbing. Let me just double check. The thread will go like that, so the ribbing will do the same. Right. So really be careful with this material. Breaks very easily, but it creates such a beautiful segmented body on a fly. Take your time with this. And once you reach the end of the abdomen, just secure it with a couple of wraps of thread, like so. Cut off the excess. Just going to take my thread forward with a couple of wraps, and then what I'm going to do is just do a small half hitch right here. That will prevent the thread from coming undone as we apply the UV resin to the abdomen of the fly. It's sort of saving your work, your previous work. What you can also do is, if you have a bobbin rest or a bobbin holder, you can just transfer your thread over that, takes it out of the way, and now you can just work with the UV resin. So open your UV resin dispenser and just apply a little bit of it on top of the fly. Turn it around and do the same for the bottom of the fly, like so. Not too much at this stage. Take your bodkin and just spread it out as you rotate the fly, very carefully. That's the first layer, nothing special, nothing too much, and just cure that with the torch, a UV torch that is. Use a normal torch, you're going to wait a very long time. Just cure that, like so. And now take some silly Hansens, hard as nails, and take most of it off the brush. Just give it 1 or 2 drops at the top, turn it around, like so. Now what you can do, take your bobbin your bodkin and just spread it around evenly, even to the back here. And if there's any excess, just remove some of it, like so. So let's just let that cure for a second or two. I'll be back as soon as that's done. Right, so the UV resin and the hard as nails have cured. So what we need to do next is just remove this bobbin rest, bobbin holder, and wrap it back a couple of times like so. So what we're going to do now is to tie in that peacock collar that was positioned just behind the hackle. I chose 2 peacock roll fibers here. I'm just going to cut their tips so that they align, and then I'm going to position them where the thread is and just tie them in right there. Make a couple of wraps like so, and then do about 3 wraps of peacock roll for the collar. Secure the peacock roll. You can use you could create a hotspot, so you can use some fluorescent dubbing if you wish. Anything like that would do. Just going to cover this a little bit. So now we need to prepare the hackle. So for that I'm just going to remove a feather from the partridge. That feather is perfect. I'm going to remove all the fluffy fibers at the base of the feather, like so. And I'm going to pull back the fibers, like so. And then I'm going to remove the fibers on the left hand side of the hackle. Then I'm going to tie in the feather right in front of the peacock roll collar. I'm going to cut off the excess. Wrap your thread slightly forward. Attach a hackle plier and wrap the hackle in the same direction as the thread. Very carefully going forward, paying attention that you're not trapping any fibers. And then just secure with thread. So now cut off the excess and take your permanent marker and color the thread. Like so. And pull back the hackle fibers and just create a neat head for the fly, like so. Right, now take your whip finishing tool, pull out more thread, take your whip finishing tool and just do a 3-turn whip finish. That's sufficient. What's very important is pull the knot tight, like so, and then cut off the thread as close to the body as possible. What I do is I just take my bodkin and just splay out the fibers. Just split them like so, and then what you do is take some head cement, in this case hard as nails, just add a drop to a bodkin and pull back the head fibers, just add some hard as nails around the head of the fly. That'll just secure it, like so. And there you have one of my favorite variants of a soft hackle fly. It's relatively easy to tie. Once you get the hang of it, your materials are set together, you can really pop them out quite quickly. It's an incredibly effective fly, and it's a fly that has a lot of tradition to it as well. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and we'll see each other next time. Cheers.